For some analysis of the throne speech, I'm joined by two community leaders. Peter Gilmer is with the Regina Anti-Poverty Ministry, and Jason Aebig is the CEO of the Greater Saskatoon Chamber of Commerce. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Jason, what stood out to you the most this afternoon?
Well, what stood out the most, I think, was how detailed the speech was. It was very, very clear, very articulated in terms of a path forward for the province, which is uncharacteristic of throne speeches. Really liked the pieces that sort of reminded us that we have some very strong fundamentals in the province, certainly economically. Some of that $10 billion in new investment just announced in the last several months. Really important to remember. Really like the new initiative in terms of the Indigenous Investment Finance Corporation. I think that is a long-standing need and a tremendous opportunity for Saskatchewan to invite First Nations and Indigenous communities into large-scale projects and investments as equity shareholders, as opposed to just communities that are being consulted through the process.
Peter, Jason mentioned all the detail. In that detail, what was missing from the throne speech?
Yeah, well, certainly for a speech from the throne with that much detail, there was virtually nothing about poverty or homelessness, which in the aftermath of all the repercussions from the implementation or expansion of the Saskatchewan Income Support Program and the real growth in homelessness and destitution that we're seeing on the ground and throughout the province, we're very disturbed, frankly, that there wasn't any action in terms of moving and reforming income assistance as it now stands, on moving to deal with the issue of homelessness and the issue of creation of more social and affordable housing.
The speech outlined the government's plans on the future, but there is not a lot in there about the pandemic. Jason, what do you think about the balance this government has struck and where it appears to be going?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I would note that the first 10 minutes of the speech was about COVID. It was a snapshot of where we are and what the government's doing. In many respects, over the last 20 months, it's felt like a throne speech every day about where we are in the pandemic. In terms of striking the balance, I think the government has done reasonably well. I think it's clear health and economy are two sides of the same coin, which is really prosperity. The economic determinants of health, like jobs and income and financial security and economic opportunities, those all have a huge impact on the physical and mental health of people. And so overall, I think the government has done its best to balance that coin on its side, protecting both lives and livelihoods at the same time.
Peter, if you had the ear of Premier Moe, what would you ask him to do?
Well, the first thing that we would be asking for is to reform the Saskatchewan Income Support Program so that it actually had realistic rates for people to live on. What we're forcing people to live on is less than $285 for all their non-shelter related needs. And now they're having to live on $575 for all their shelter and utility costs combined. It's even less outside of Regina and Saskatoon. So certainly raising the rates, looking at covering the actual cost of utilities for people, moving back to the option of direct payments for housing providers and utility providers, and also ending some of the clawbacks that we see with the program, including clawing back the rental supplement for those who've been able to maintain it to this point, and security deposits, and even small gifts of money. There's very little leeway in this program, and while there's been talk of it being for independence and flexibility, the reality is that it allows people very little control over their lives.
Well, thank you so much both for your time and perspective today.
Thanks. You.
Jason Aebig is the CEO of the Greater Saskatoon Chamber of Commerce, and Peter Gilmer is an anti-poverty advocate in Regina.